Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Powerful Man Show. I am your host, Doug Holt, with my co-host, Tim, the Powerful Matthews. What's going down, brother?
Tim the Powerful Matthews.
Powerful man. Did I not say powerful man?
Powerful Matthews. If anyone from my family will be listening, they'll be like, I'm the most powerful Matthews. It's me.
Buddy, I
Bad
probably
guy.
stumbled because I'm watching you because I know we hit record and you're like, what are we talking about? I have no idea what I'm walking into right now.
Sometimes. Yeah. You lead the first few, right? So I'm like, Doug likes to not give me any prep,
Yeah.
which is nice.
Well, gentlemen, as we always talk about, as you can imagine, Tim and I have a good time. And
All
we go
about
back and
setting each
forth.
other up for success, right?
What's that?
All about setting each other up for success, like any
Exactly.
relationship.
Well, man, you got me onto this stuff. And we're not sponsored, but the quality of mind stuff. This has got a cup of coffee, almost the equivalent of caffeine in it
Oh, nice.
per serving.
Right.
Yeah. Don't get me wrong, I'm loving it.
Oh, really? You liking it?
I do. I mean, I like caffeine, so it's definitely a bonus, but I do like it. I'm glad I took you up on it. I know you were trying it and enjoying it, and you and one of our head coach, Arthur Muguliniti.
Yeah, I've actually changed the timing of it because before I was having it first thing, like it says, but recently I'm doing a 21-day. It's not a cleanse, but of kefir, 21-day program, and that's the first thing that hits your stomach each day. And the thing with this is, I realized that I was finding it hard to meditate after taking that. Obviously, so I'm like, do you know what? I'm gonna do my do the first part of morning routine, and then I'll take it just before I start getting into reviewing certain things and strategizing. And that's worked much better for me.
Yeah.
Much better.
Imagine grabbing a couple shots of espresso. Well, this would be a one shot of espresso and then trying to meditate.
Yeah, exactly. It wasn't working very well. I was like, something gets to change.
Yeah. What's funny because my background, back in 2001, I'm not sure if you were born then, but back in 2001, one of the jobs that I had was assistant director of the International Sports Science Association. And one of the things that I had access to was a thing called consumer labs. And so consumer labs, what they do is they take all the supplements in the market. And here in the States, we have extremely loose regulations when it comes to supplements. You can pretty much sell anything as long as you put a little asterisk by it and say, this claim has not been validated by the FDA, And I can read the exact claim. And it's probably on yours as well. But anyway, point being, consumer labs would test things. So they'll take, let's just say, vitamins, and they'll take the top 20 brands, and then they'll lab test them. And usually, and it's obviously a made up stat, but let's just say 12 out of those 20 wouldn't have the ingredients it says it does on the label. Right. And it was crazy. It was mind blowing. And when you go for weight loss supplements, all the top selling weight loss supplements had caffeine. So bodybuilders since like the 70s, maybe the 60s, have been doing what's called an ECA stack, ephedra, caffeine, aspirin. And so all the top supplements still for weight loss still copy that. Instead of ephedrine, they do ephedra. There's all kinds of synephrine, yahimbi, all kinds of modifications to it. But you see it all the time. So whenever I take a supplement that I'm like, wow, I feel really good, it usually has caffeine and taurine in it. And taurine helps with the mood so you don't crash on the caffeine. But pretty much all supplements, I'm assuming this one does too. Yep.
Yeah, it's got taurine and
200 milligrams. They all do. Crazy. So anyway, I'm enjoying it. I've only been taking it for like 3 days.
Sure.
3 days, but I'd also enjoy a shot of espresso in front of me too. What?
An expensive cup of coffee.
It's a suit. Yeah. I'm sure it does other stuff, but yeah, it's a super expensive cup of coffee.
I tell you what, the kefir that I've been having has shifted my body clock.
Really?
Yeah, it's just been little shifts, little changes I've noticed. Digestion definitely has improved. I was prone to, if I ate really spicy foods, I could be prone to a bit of heartburn or indigestion that evening depending on the timing of the meal and stuff. and how much oil was in it as well. So it could have been the oil, but that's kind of subsided, which is great. And also now around 9, 10 o'clock, I'm just getting tired naturally, which is a great time for me to be getting tired, right? Um, Waking up, feeling good, feeling clear. So it's been really, yeah, it's been really interesting.
Cool. I'd be excited. So it's a 21-day Kafia cleanse you're doing?
Well, it's not so much a cleanse. Basically, kefir is just probiotic and prebiotic, but
Yep.
it's a particular type. So it's raw goat's milk fermented.
Sure.
So obviously, it's all about your gut microbiome, right?
Super
So you
important.
do like a 21-day supply. We take it first thing in the morning, 170 mils of the kefir, which is like the milk, and 10 grams of the prebiotic, which is like a powder with some other bits of stuff in. But yeah, I am on day number 10, 11. Yeah, I mean it doesn't taste very good, but if you can get past, it's kind of like sour cheese, like gone off
I've
cheese.
had it before. Yeah.
Yeah, so it doesn't taste great, but it's you can just bosh it down, get it down you, and then yeah, it's good. I'm really enjoying it.
Cool. One of the things I admire about you and the other coaches we have is you're always experimenting with things before you go out there and pontificate about them to the world and say, oh, this is the way to do it. You're trying new things. I know you've had allergies coming up, right? That have been bothering you. So I'm assuming that's one of the reasons you're doing this, to see if you can kick those.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
I'm a huge believer. I mean, it's kind of it's kind of the newer fitness thing, right? Or health thing is the probiotics and gut biome and prebiotics that feed the good. Well, they feed all probiotics, all the little microbes in your body, good and bad. But creating that, it's been fascinating to see the research coming out.
And just try it, right? See the difference in mood, sleep, energy. Yeah, it's been great, and regulating your circadian rhythms is obviously one of the side benefits of your gut microbiome, along with mood. I mean, saying all this, Doug, you should be on it.
What are you trying to say?
But yeah, it's great. It's really good, and it was spurred on by trying to sort out what these allergies are, but I think it's turned out just to be something super simple, which is still great because I've been seeing a Chinese medical doctor with acupuncture and acupressure and his little remedies, which they've been okay. I've not noticed a big shift using that. So I won't continue with that after I've finished. There's 2 more sessions. But definitely the prebiotics and probiotics have been really good. And then I was going to go see an Ayurveda doctor because one of the ideas Amir and I had was that I might be a cold person. You can have hot and cold, right?
I think she's just telling you you're cold.
So obviously when this time of year hits and it gets colder, if I'm then doing a lot of cold exposure, which I do, and it's cold anyway, and I'm colder for longer, then I could just be putting a little bit too much strain on my body and on my immune system. But I'll wait about that one. I'm not too sure whether or not I'll go see that person. But yeah, it's fascinating. It's great. When you refuse to sell for a standard and it forces you into taking action because you refuse it, the things that you learn and realize are just I feel alive when I do it, right? When I'm learning more about my body or any area of my life.
Yeah.
And I'm growing and I'm learning and I'm just that feeling of growth is just incredible. And for me, it's very different to listening to an audiobook, or even reading a book. Actually refusing to accept something and then going and trying different approaches and seeing shifts occur, whether it's in a relationship or business or health or whatever. A book is great. And if you don't apply it, or even a podcast, if you don't apply it, then, it's, better off than before, right? In fact, you're probably worse because now you know more and you've not done anything with it.
Sure.
So, yeah, it's great. Amelia and I were going through the relationship purpose yesterday. series of questions. We go for breakfast on a Tuesday morning to go through it. Made it fun, right? I think you saw my post in Workplace. One of the things is, what are your values? And for me, a big part of my values obviously is growth. So it's really important that, we both are invested in growing the relationship. So it's been great to just set that little date up as well every week, a little breakfast date, and just go focus on the growth of the relationship. It's been really cool.
Awesome, man. Yeah. What kind of reminds me of when you're talking about like not settling, right? Is I'll use overweight, right? People get overweight and they just like, oh, this is the way it is. All of a sudden walking upstairs is harder, or doing these things is harder. And I remember when I was working with a business leader and this guy dropped 25 pounds, right? It was the time he dropped 25 pounds. I remember this, but I'll tell you why. He dropped 25 pounds and he was complaining about this, complaining about that, just wasn't in a grateful abundance idea, and was really beating himself up by his body image and his weight and all these other things, right? He still had a long way to go. So for one of our sessions, and this is in person, I brought a 25-pound weight plate. That's right, for him. So what is that in kilos? That's
13-ish.
13 kilos weight plate. I gave it to him. He's like, what's this for? I go, I want you to go do the stairs. I want you to walk around the track and do things that you normally do just for an hour, but you have to carry this weight, additional weight. This is the weight you lost already. Within literally 2 minutes, he just looked at me. He was huffing and puffing. He's like, I get it. Holy cow. Like, this is the weight I had been carrying around without realizing it for so long. The burden it put on my cardiovascular system, the burden it put on my self-confidence, the burden, da, 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 da.
Mm-hmm.
And the point is, we don't realize those things, right? Maybe it's sinuses, maybe it's something in a relationship. Until we accept them just as, this is just the way it is, rather than actually trying new things. So yeah, I compliment you for doing, the Chinese medicine, the Ayurvedic, etc. Because man, I've had some experiences with both of those, and they've been interesting for me too.
Yeah, it's interesting. You was at a summit last week, wasn't you? And one of the guys, he's pretty successful business guys, relatively, eight figures ish, thereabouts in revenue. So they know what they're talking about when it comes to other businesses. I think do 9 figures. And one of the things they said, right, was it's all about 2 things: mindset and routines. And he looked across to his business partner. I think he said, look, this guy doesn't have wings. He can't fly. He can't hold his breath underwater. It's just all about mindset and routines, which is so true. I know, at least for myself, when I've experienced a real significant shift in my life, it's always come after putting myself in a position where I refuse to accept a certain standard. Working with the intimacy coach, it was the same thing. Amelia and I had a disagreement in bed one night, and really, it wasn't about the disagreement. It was the fact that symbolized a disconnect that had been bubbling that I wasn't happy with. We had a good relationship. We got along, all that kind of stuff, but it wasn't great. And I wasn't willing to sell. So hence reaching out. Same in business. I'll back myself into a corner where I've got to make a shift. What spurred me in my health this year, because my goal this year was to be in the best shape I've ever been in, which I will be, which is great. Overall, holistically, flexibility, mobility, fitness. Well, I get to do some work on my fitness, to be honest. It's gone down the past few weeks. But anyway, point I'm making is, someone said to me, well, Tim, that's just what happens when you get older. You're going to put a little bit of weight on, or you're going to do it. And I'm like, fuck that. There's no way I am accepting that as a standard for me or my life. I'm just not going to do it. It's huge, but it feeds into mindset, right?
100%. And I was talking to a guy, Dan O'Brien. He lives in Spain. U.S. guy, lives in Spain. I was talking to him maybe a month ago. Great guy. And, had kids, owns a couple businesses over there, got out of shape, and then got himself back into shape. I mean, ripped. And he's in his mid to late 40s, I believe. But I mean, ripped, like photo shoot ripped. And he just changed his paradigm. Said, you know what? He said, one day I woke up, so this is not acceptable. Started off, it was hard, right? Getting back into shape is always tough. The advantage is if you've been in shape, you know that there's the other side to the toughness. If you can push once you push through that. So I was talking to him. He's like, I just didn't accept it anymore. Because the questions that you and I always ask is, all right, what was the shift for you? Because we're always digging for the psychology so we can help other clients in case different methodologies, right? So yeah, his thing was just I just didn't accept it as being a dad who's a new dad, right? And new dads, the story is you're a new dad, you gain weight, you get the dad bod, the whole thing. And he did, and then basically said, screw this. I'm not going to be the guy going into my 50s, 60s, 70s, continuing to gain weight, drink wine excessively, still drinks wine. But he was in a state of excess, and he just made a paradigm shift and a pivot. His business improved, his relationships improved, his self-confidence improved, all because of that mindset shift.
Yeah, it's interesting, right? We always look up to and admire or role model these people in sport or business or whatever, right? And the interesting thing about it is every single one of them has that mindset, right? Of refusing to accept something that they don't want to accept. I think the appealing thing is, I think the tendency, right, in human nature is to be comfortable. Homeostasis, kind of like the body, right? And in order to break a mold and create something you've never created before, and which, for the most part will more than likely be different to what's in your environment. Depending on who you surround yourself with. But, for the most part, although, for example, we have an online community, let's say, and relationships, for me, where I am physically in Leeds, there's not really anyone else nearby who I can relate to, right? Point I'm making is when we look at these people achieving great things, I think it really speaks to something that's innate within all of us, right? That desire to be great, a desire to leave something great behind, that desire to live up to your potential and break down and challenge these barriers that say mental barriers, right? Mindset, these mental barriers that want to keep you comfortable and want to keep you safe, I want to protect you, I want to avoid any psychological harm from coming up against your fears of not being enough or failing or whatever it is. But yet, how often do people actually live that? Instead, they often, and this isn't anything against anybody, I know I was there at a time in my life, instead, they'll admire everybody else who does it and want to do it for themselves, but very rarely do they take the risks to get out of the comfort zone to the degree that they know they could to achieve what it is they really want, be it in a relationship, be it connecting with your wife and being vulnerable and being honest and taking the lead and becoming the man that you know you're capable of being, be it in business, growing at the level or impacting or whatever, be it in your health, be it whatever it is, right? The reality is, I think that desire is innate within every single, if not most, vast majority of people. And I know for myself, there's no way I'm going to die with regret. I've been like, oh, damn, what if? I wish I would have done, I wish I would have just played a little bit bigger. I mean, how can you turn around and say to your kids and tell your kids to go out there and achieve something great if you shied away from doing it yourself? How can you do that? I just don't see how it's possible. Obviously, I don't have kids, but when we do, I'd like to. I think that's going to spur me on even more to be able to say, "Hey, instead of listening to what I say, you can look at what I did. You can look at what I do. Not pushing it upon them, obviously, But if they ever come for advice, there's a clear example of how I live.
Yeah. Well, I mean, kids, man, you hear this, and then when you have kids, you're like, holy cow, this is true. They're always watching, and they're watching your actions more than anything else. Like my wife and I are so cognizant of how we relate to each other, right? In general, but especially in front of the kids. And we don't try to hide things per se, but we're like, that's a topic for us because the kids are watching. They're watching when we have a disagreement, how we handle it. They're watching, when I grab her, and pull her in, right? Or she comes behind me and gives me a big hug when I come, home from work, which for me now is, I have this whole floor to myself at the house. When I go down to the other floors, whatever floor that she's on, right? It's just that change, and they notice and they take it on. And my son, who's only 3, starts repeating it, right? Like he wants to role play. Hey, I'll be the daddy, you be mommy, or you be the kid. And the words that come out of his mouth, I just notice things that he's picking up, right? Just little things. And not all of them are amazing. Like not some of them like, oh, okay, I get to change that, right? And one of them was, oh, just a second, I'll be right back and I'll play with you, right? So I'm like, oh, I must say that a lot because he's repeating it when we role play. But 90% of them I was really, really happy of, right? And especially when we talk about how we do it. The point of this is kids are always watching. The other point is, guys, if you're a business leader, your staff is always watching. They're listening to you, yeah, but they're watching you. They're watching your actions, how you're behaving, how you're showing up. Your wife is watching your actions, how you're behaving, how you're showing up. Your kids are watching your actions, how you're behaving, how you're showing up. Your subconscious mind is watching how you're acting, how you're behaving, how you're showing up. So there's no greater time to show up. And if you're not going to show up today in this moment, when the hell are you going to show up? Point it to me on the calendar, right? When are you going to show up? When are you going to step up? And if this is triggering you, in other words, if this is pissing you off, hearing me, it's because you can relate to it. That's the only reason. Screw you, Doug. Hey, yeah, what are you doing? It's because you really relate to what I'm saying and it's driving you nuts. And I get it because I've been there, right? You're destined for more and just friggin' feels just out of your reach for some reason. Totally get it. Been there. I go through it in waves, right? As you up level and raise the bar in your standards in your life, you realize what now is possible. And what used to be your ceiling becomes your floor and the ceiling raises. Happens in your relationships, your health, all kinds of areas, and they ebb and flow. It's part of life, but it's the way it goes.
Yeah, you definitely were not put on this planet to struggle, put it that way.
No, not at all. Not at all.
A lot of people think they are though, right? A lot of people think that it's a good sign that it's hard, or it's a good sign that it's a struggle. And they'll chase that and they become literally addicted to it. And they'll recreate the pattern, whether it's in whatever area of life, right? But the reality is, you weren't put on this planet for it to be hard. I'm all for growth. I'm all for pushing through things. What I mean is, we hear stories of some guys, right, that are working the 80-hour weeks, 90-hour weeks, and they believe, well, Tim, that's just what I've got to do, right? That's just what comes with running a business, right? Now I've got to go out there and provide. They've got to understand that I'm doing this for them. It's just part of it, right? It's what it is to be a business owner. Well, I personally don't believe that. I'm not saying that isn't true for some people, but the point is, these guys are talking to us because they don't want to have that. But they believe that's the way it should be. It needs to be. But it doesn't.
Well, we talk about one destination, two paths, right? And we really should have a great illustration of this. But, there's two paths. We're all trying to get to the same destination, right? At the end of the day, call it freedom, your ideal life. We call it the powerful man, right? Becoming the powerful man that you know is inside of you. And the path, if you look at this and you picture in your mind's eye a path in the woods that forks out, right? One goes to the left, one goes to the right. Path on the left, we talk about it. It's struggle. It's grinding it out. It's chasing women to fill your needs. It's, drugs, alcohol to fill a need, not because you're celebrating or whatever, but to fill a need. And what happens is you go down this path And it seems like you slip and you go back, right? You're always going one step forward, two steps back. It seems as if. Often guys will describe this, or I'll describe it from my experience, is it feels like, cool, I'm moving forward, but my wheels are spinning in the mud. And every year it's like same goals, micro improvements here and there, but it wasn't going well. And then the other path is a path much more of flow and ease. Now it takes a lot of work, don't get me wrong, but it's one of flow and ease. It's where a path where you're constantly working the systems, you're working those things. And that path is much, much faster. And the ironic thing is we teach in the methodologies on the right path, right? The path of flow and ease that's coming through there. And again, I don't want to paint roses. It's still work, but flow and ease. There are men that are on that path who are calling to the other guys in the path, come over here, it's better. It's like, hey, come on over. The problem is the guys on the left path are looking over going, he must be cheating the system. He must be taking steroids because he's in shape. He must not have the problems I have with my wife, or it's easy for him because he inherited money. Whatever the stories are, we do that to justify our case, and we don't go over and talk to the guy on the other path, right? Rarely, because we make up some story. It can't be true. And so that guy that's on the other side is going, hey, come over. It's better over here. Eventually he just stops shouting because he doesn't want the nitpicking. Oh, you look great in your 40s. You must be doing steroids. Oh, your relationship is good. But behind closed doors, I bet it's horrible. Or, your business is doing well. You must be cheating people, right? You and I both know that's not the case, right? They have a different way of being. Like you said, Tim, just to push this analogy, but that conference I was at that I attended, it was virtual, but the two guys who are the owners that hosted it, they own, I think it's at least 4 businesses together, right? The partners, which is awesome. And every one of those is a 7-figure to 8-figure business. And they're only working 40 hours a month. And I believe them because they're not pitching anything at this point. They're just talking about their lifestyles. And when the guy said, look, he can't fly, pointing to his business partner. He can't breathe underwater. There's nothing special about either of us, except we think differently. Our mindsets are different, and we constantly work our morning routines. And it wasn't easy to get here, but we chose this path and we work it, and they're reaping the benefits. Most people will listen to an audiobook, to your point, listen to a podcast like this, get inspiration, get nuggets, but not take action, not raise their hand, not say, when is the time? Now is the time, right? When isn't the time? When the time isn't the right question. It's just a statement. Now is the time. Now is the time to take massive action and whatever you got to do. So Tim, I'm going to wrap this up. It's been a fun conversation as we go through this. I always love it. Love, for those that are watching this either on YouTube or social media, love the picture behind you. Absolutely fantastic. Get in there. But and all kidding aside, guys, this directly applies to your life. I love that we can have this conversation, the three of us, you, Tim, and I together, going through. So I'd love to know what you got out of this. What are the insights or the aha moments? And share them over on the Facebook group. We have a private Facebook group that's over there for guys. If you're an alumni listening to this, you still have access to the private alumni group. It's off of Facebook. It's a private group. I'd love you guys to reach out in there as well and here. But either way, guys, as always, go over to thepowerfulman.com/bonus. That's thepowerfulman.com/bonus and get that free training if you haven't done it already. Because I want you guys to take action. I want you to get something out of this. This is a movement of men. The reason Tim and I do this podcast, isn't because we love hearing ourselves talk. That's certainly not the case, at least for me.
I do.
I know you do. But it's because this is a movement of men. This is a transformation in the ideology of society. And this is coming. It's moving now. And it's kind of like, hey, if you're listening to this, you're ready to jump on the train, right? Join other men just like you in moving forward. Let's make this world a better place. All right, guys, that's a wrap for us. We'll see you next time on The Powerful Man Show.